Hello and welcome to another video. On today's video we're going to change the bearing on the back wheels of a Toyota RAV4 MKIII, years between 2006 and 2010. It should be a fairly simple process to do so. I've never done it before, just watched a couple of videos and a couple of instructions on the internet, and today we're going to do it together. If you look at over here, this is the most crucial part of it that could be a little bit tricky to do. And for this nut over here, you would need a deep socket number 30. Here are the instructions on what to buy if you haven't got one yet. Bought this one yesterday for myself to do this job. The thing that you got to be really focusing on is the 12 groove one, not the simple 6 ones, because as you can see in here it's got 12 grooves. Number 30 is the one that is going over here, so without this one it's better not even to think about starting this job, and it should be fairly tricky to take this one apart. I believe on this car it's the original wheel bearing. It's been driven roughly about 180,000 kilometers, and it's time to do the service on this one and change it. Started to making noises on the other side, but when you do this sort of a service you might as well do it on both sides, just to keep everything smoothly and give yourself a little bit of insurance, as not you're going to change the other side a couple of months down the lane. So first we're going to go ahead and take off the cap using a screwdriver. Make sure the area is good enough, and before you go ahead and loose it up, if I can focus it in here, as you can see there is a groove in here. I mean, the nut has been broken, so it doesn't automatically be pried off. Use a screwdriver of some sorts to put it back into place, and once it's rounded, then you can go ahead and try to break it off. I think I will have a little bit of an issue with taking this one up, so I'm just going to go ahead and spray a little bit of it rust removal. So as I said, WD-40 is the way to go. Just gonna spray a little bit in here. There we go. That should do the trick for us. So I'm gonna let it sit for about 5 minutes, then trying to pray this part out, and then see if I can loosen the nut. After you loosen the nut, then it's the time to loosen all the lug nuts, jack up the car, and then take out the wheel and go for the next process. The reason that we do it once the car is still on the ground, I mean, I don't have a jack or anything, I'm just doing it in my front driveway. And the reason that we do it on the ground, because this nut is like 160 foot of torque. I think it's 160 foot-pounds, and that's a lot of pressure on it, so you can't do it on the air. So it's better to do it on the ground while the whole weight of the car is on the nut, so you won't have any problems with spinning the wheel all the time. So it rained a little bit and I had to go away for a while, and the rust removal did its trick. I used a little flathead screwdriver and a small hammer. I slowly hammered it in, and I believe it should be good enough to open it up. There we go. So it's time to loosen the lug nuts, jack up the car, take the tires out, and follow on with the rest of the process. Back to this part. Now that this one is loose, next step to do is to get the brake caliper out, and to do so, if we come right at the back, just put it somewhere so that you can see the brake caliper. We got a couple of nuts. One is this one, and exactly the same type right at the bottom of this one. And then you need to take these two out. There is not really a good angle for you guys to see, but I think it takes number 17 socket or 14, depending on the type of a car that you do. This car, I think, is number 17. So now that I've taken the bolts out, as I said, it's number 17. Next thing that you need to do, mine is pretty simple. I don't need to do anything, but in case it's jammed in there, there is an opening in here. You can get a big screwdriver or a pry bar or something in there, and then lever it in. So the piston that is over here, it drives it slightly back. It gives you a little bit more space because these brakes are pinching the disc, so it could be pretty jammed in there. It's just like loosen it up so you can take the caliper out, but make sure when you do so, in case you need to use a screwdriver in here, first thing you do, you will go to the engine department and open up at least the reservoir for the brake fluid, because what's going to happen when you lever it over here, all the fluid inside, the brake fluid inside, is going to drive right back up this pipe that you got over here, or the hose that you got here, back to the reservoir. And if it is pressurized inside, the door is, or the lid or the cap is closed, then it's got nowhere to go, and it's going to put so much pressure on these hoses that you have. Just to prevent any damage that might happen, make sure that the cap is off in the brake fluid reservoir. But there you have it. Take it out simple. I don't need to change the brakes, but it's fairly the same process if you want to take the caliper out and change the brakes. Another thing that you do, once you take it out, you just make sure that there is no stress on your pipe. Don't let it dangle down, just let it somewhere sit. There's a really good place for me to put it right there, and it can rest in there until I'm finished with this one. Now that it's time to take the disc out, as you can see, it's pretty much stuck in there, and the reason behind it, on these cars there are two different type of brakes. We got the brake pads once you press the pedal, and for the e-brake or hand brake, you have the old style drum brakes, and it's inside here. I'm just gonna go release the handbrake, take the pressure off here, and then I gotta be able to take the disc off. Here is another trick for you guys, in case you got your brake disc pretty jammed in there and stuck. Instead of just going ahead and start hammering it and all sorts of damage that you could do to the disc, if you're gonna be able to reuse it, there are two little screw holes on the disc. Just find the right screw for it, like this is the one that I found, and slowly screw it in. And what it's got to do, it's got to do the trick for you. It's got to slowly drag the disc out without any problems, and once it is released on one of them, just take it out and do the same on the other side. So next thing that we need to do now is to take this one fully out. Just use a small ratchet and try to take it out, and this is exactly where I told you. As you see, I'm trying to take it out, but it's just gonna go spinning around. So that was the reason behind it, that we loosened it up once it was on the ground. Let me see if I can go ahead and, yep. So jam something in between to make it prevent from spinning, Just go ahead and take the nut out. That's the nut for you. Normally, since this is the part that you gotta be hammering into the groove just to prevent the nut getting loose, this is a service part as well, and I would advise you to change it. Now this is out, but we still have another 4 nuts at the back. Let me see if I can take the camera, show them where the nuts are. Okay, so the nuts that we gotta loose are here, another one down there at the bottom, and the corresponding ones somewhere down here as well, which there's tons of like mud and dust and everything on top of it, but they gotta be here where my finger is right now, and another corresponding one right there at the bottom. So I'm just gonna use a wire brush, clean it up a little bit, and try to take a second shot if I can show it to you guys. Okay, so I managed to take all of these bolts out. It was a little bit of a challenge because, as you can see, it's cramped with all sorts of suspension parts in here, and if you don't have the right tool, it will be challenging, but I've done it. One thing that I can advise you to at least try to buy before you start this job, the short sockets is not going to work out properly. You need a deep socket, and they are number 14. Get yourself a nice number 14 deep socket so you won't bump into any problems while you're doing these. They've used the red stuff for the thread lock on the bolts, so they are pretty good in there, and you need to put a lot of force into it to break them loose. Yeah, once you get them out, next thing that you gotta do is you gotta undo this cable, this one right here. There is one bolt in here, that's a number 10, and this is the sensor for the ABS. So you gotta loose that one, take the cable out, rest it somewhere, and then last thing that is left is to pull this one out. So stay with me, let's see how it goes. It's raining really bad, and it's just been raining on and off, so it's a challenge. So as you can see, I managed to take it out. So I shoved a big screwdriver in there, being careful not to hit any of the handbrake parts, and just use the proper mallet or a hammer. And the way that they did is just like put it in there and hit it with this part from the back, a couple on this side, couple on the other side, and then wiggled it all the way through using some penetration oil, sprayed at the back, and eventually it came out. So there are different techniques, but I mean, come on, you gotta improvise when you do things like this in your back garden. I managed to take it out. I hope that this technique works for you as well if you don't have the proper tools for the job, just like me. Now, oh yeah, by the way, I took this one out as well. It's easy, just make sure you take it out. You don't want to damage this. Yeah, so now it's out. So this is what I got for myself. I had to study it a little bit to see if I can do anything with the other one where it's placed, but as you can see, there is nowhere that you can really press against it. And the good thing that I noticed, this new part comes with a new nut, so I don't need to use the old one. I'm gonna keep it just in case though, but I'm gonna definitely use the new part in there. And another thing that you can salvage from the old hub, if you really want to do it, are these. You can tap them out. Yep, there we go. And believe it or not, they are like proper good lug nuts. In case something happens to your lug nuts, you can use these and use them in the future in case you might need them. They're quite pricey as well. I mean, here where I live, they're roughly, each one is about 10 euros. So there's 50 euros for you. So I've cleaned it a little bit now using this one, which is a rust removal. So I use this one, and obviously since it's got to be all delicate parts. I used just a plastic brush and got in there and cleaned the rest of it with a little bit of a kitchen towel. And now I think the area is good enough for the installation of the new hub. But you gotta bear in mind though, as you can see, the top ones are further away compared to the bottom ones. They're not like properly done, so this is the way that it's gotta go in. Just be careful, don't try to rush it. And one more thing that you can do is, you can see there's a lot of rust in here. Just for the sake of the next time installation, I'm just gonna use some of these copper paste. Just not gonna put it on the bearing side, just gonna put it round. Make sure that next person, whoever it is, not gonna go through all the hassle of removing it. It's just gonna keep it way easier for the next person to take it out. So I put it back in place now. I ended up just using a little bit of a WD-40 on the grooves for the shaft in here, so it'll help it glide in slightly easier. All you gotta do is everything in reverse now. So put the bolts at the back and I start tightening them up. Remember to use the Loctite, the redder stuff for this one, because you're not gonna do it service on this one for another thousands of miles or thousands of kilometers. You just want to make sure that over the years it stays in place. One more tip that I want to give you: when you want to take this one apart, always try to start with the hardest to reach nut. In my case it was this one. Well, there's no nut in here, but the one at the back of this one, right at the back. So if you can loosen this one up, then you can go ahead for this one, then this one, and the easiest one is this one. So start from the hardest one. And the reason behind it, in case you cannot loosen up this one, don't touch the others. Drive to a shop or somewhere and they can do it for you. If you end up opening everything up and then get stuck over here, you almost kind of like get involved into a really big project for yourself, because you cannot remove the car anymore. It's not going to be any good to put everything back in and drive away. So start from the hardest one and make your way up to the easiest one. And once you can open this one up, then everything is down the lane. I hope you enjoyed this video. Watch the other videos regarding fixing the cars, and if you haven't liked this video yet, I would appreciate so much if you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because I'm gonna do tons of other dye stuff to this car and the other car that I have. So stay tuned for more videos. Thank you very much for watching.